It's Wednesday night. It's time for Shoot the Gap. I am your host, Nate Markham. With me are my two best buds. Notice how I did the two best buds, both brought to you in part by Anheuser-Busch. Not really, no affiliation whatsoever, other than they will help keep my two co-hosts nice and lubricated when we get into this week's discussion of Shoot the Gap for week 4. Shoot the Gap. Fantasy and Frames IDP Podcast Network. As I said, I'm Nate Markham. Joining me is Hollywood Titan Jorge Edwards. As Hollywood takes a drink, Hollywood, you can wait. You don't have to answer. Jorge, how are you?
I am doing fantastic, man. We were said this last hour or 2 hours ago. Wow, it feels like it was just last hour. 2 hours ago on Fourth and Frames. This is the number one podcast on the Fantasy and Frames Podcast Network. And we come on at 10 o'clock at night on a Wednesday, and our numbers just blow up podcast-wise and live stream-wise, and it's a testament to the hard work we do here.
7 o'clock for our friends on the West Coast. 9 o'clock for us Central fans. Hollywood, how are you?
I'm ghetto fabulous, baby.
You look like you're doing about, I'd say, what a fourth place Chicago Cubs fan would be doing. Nice hat, by the way.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Hey,
You've almost made the playoffs if 30 teams were allowed in the playoffs this year.
Oh, wow.
Not a bad. Pat yourself on the back, my friend.
Hey, shots fired. This is where we're at tonight. That's okay. That's okay.
I got news.
I hate it that Mike's not here or AK Smooth Jazz. I hate it he's not here to witness what's about to go down, but that's okay.
That's true. Those listening know Mike Wohlert this week. He said he has too much work to do, and I respect that. Always put your actual job. This could be our full-time job. As much time as and effort as we put into it. But the return is so much sweeter than a 9 to 5, just getting a paycheck and making a living. We get to talk about IDP and, basically bust each other's balls over some stupid calls from last week. That should have a name. Busting balls over terrible calls. Let's start with
Balls and Calls.
Balls and Calls. That sounds like a different podcast for a different time. That is a 1-800 number ready to get going. And
do they still have 1-800 numbers nowadays? Do they even have
1-900 numbers?
What? Excuse me.
Yeah.
So
not the pay. Yeah, I'm sure they talk like this.
Exactly. We would always elementary school. That sounds horrible. Middle school. Use those numbers on the payphone that was there, and it's like, oh, well, now you have to put in money. It's like, oh, we don't want to do that.
I know.
But do they even have payphones anymore? Is where I was going with that.
I have heard there are just few and far between. They have like a payphone. Sporadically placed, but I don't know.
Would you please stop dating us?
Yeah, exactly. This is the geezers.
I'm sure we've got listeners that are like, "What's a payphone? What the hell is a payphone?"
It's like Alan from The Hangover. Do you have a payphone bank?
Right.
Right.
Getting a number on my pager. It's like, no.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Let's instead of dating ourselves, let's do something more fun. Let's talk about injured players, and let's talk about what's going to happen in week 4.
Wow.
Unfortunately, it's a state of the game. It sucks, but maybe we don't have to have a superstar each week go down to injury. This week will not be one of those weeks, but we'll start from some news out of Baltimore. Justin Houston went down with a groin injury. The timing is immaculate. Hollywood JPP signs to play there to fill in at a much needed area, which is an efficient pass rush. You think he actually can step in this weekend and play maybe in just pure pass rush sets, or is he going to need another week of acclimation?
I think it'll be pure pass rush, but I kind of think that's going to be his role regardless, right?
Right.
Limit his reps. No matter how far into the season it is. This week, of course, it's going to be pump your brakes a little bit. But I think that's the role they want, right? A little depth piece, situational guy. And I think if they can keep him in that role, I think there's some upside there, especially if you're needing help at the position. I think there's some upside there.
Yeah, I do like that, actually. I think that it's not, I mean, don't get me wrong, Justin Houston isn't exactly a rookie, but you have someone to complement those two and Adafioe, and it makes for a much better pass rush than, I mean, the addition was pretty strong. I mean, JVP's not exactly, granted, he takes a lot of slack for the off the field things, but Jorge, you think he's worth a waiver pickup?
I mean, definitely this week, if Justin Houston doesn't play, well, let's go back to the first of all, rotational piece, ideally speaking, right? But if Justin Houston doesn't play this week, that goes out the window. He's thrust into that. I think you're going to see he's going to be playing a lot more snaps than what a rotational player would. Is he worth a pickup? Sure. I mean, he's still JPP, and even if he's not playing a lot of snaps, the efficiency I feel has always been there for him. So definitely, I think, especially depending on the depth of your league, the need, definitely I would pick him up.
Yeah, if they can get the same production they got last week out of Calais Campbell each week, which I don't expect 6 pressures every single week for him, but he kind of showed some signs. Maybe that Brandon Copeland is another name to pay attention to that might get some reps this week. Again, temper expectations. I'd like to welcome Malcolm to the show. Malcolm, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you. And love it. We got to start off with a Curtis Samuel is available to pick up. Jorge, this is your Commanders.
Yeah.
Do you drop Juju or Brandon Ayuk or Michael Gallup? So, all right, he's touched on 2 of our guys. So we're going to go ahead and say no, do not drop Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is actually, I have Brandon Ayuk at or above Curtis Samuel right now. And Gallup,
you should be able to put Gallup on IR, right?
He's back. He's back this week, so he can't.
Yeah,
you can drop Juju if you ask me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
I mean that.
Drop Juju for Samuel. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty solid to have Curtis Samuel on the waivers at this point. I like that a lot. Another person who is now will be on the waivers because he's no longer rosterable this year. Not that he was that highly rostered. Micah Hyde, great player, one of the best tandems in football at safety. Neck injury they were hoping was just a stinger. Turns out it's season ending. Jordan Poyer got in a limited practice today, which is positive, optimistic news, guys. The name that I want to ask you guys both about, and it is not much known from my standpoint, Jaquan Johnson appears to be the next man up, filling in for Micah Hyde. Even worth a pickup, or is it kind of like what we've seen? Just because he's filling a role, there's plenty of other better safety options out there, especially one that's going to be playing so much at free safety. Is that a fair statement, Hollywood?
Yeah, I think so. But, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the size of your league, right? I mean, if you're in a super deep league, then your options are limited, right? So, I know in a couple of leagues where I'm kind of weak at safety and they're super deep, I've put some claims in on Juju. So the volume should be there. So that you want first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
Volume. I think he's worth a flyer.
Okay. Like I said, I don't know. I mean, granted, I'm basing off of everything I know so far on the season, off of such limited snaps. I mean, he's played 65 snaps on the season, 43 of which came last week. And in that game, you know, he was targeted 4 times, so that's always a plus. Granted, he allowed all 4 catches, which is also a plus. NFL rating of 158.3 for first-time listeners at home, of course. Not great for real football, wonderful for fantasy football because you get points if you let them catch the ball and then tackle them. So all you cornerbacks and safeties listening, if you play your own fantasy league and you have yourself, let the receiver catch the ball and then tackle him immediately, and you get the points for that. I guess you could try to break the pass up and you would get more points, but let's baby steps it in, especially Jaquan Johnson. Moving along down the line, Cleveland, this is where we need Mike Mike, if you're listening, the unfortunate situation is that Jadeveon Clowney is banged up. Myles Garrett flipped his Porsche, should be recovering okay. Glad to hear. Denzel Ward did not practice, and JOK did not practice. JOK with a groin injury, says it's not major. They're optimistic that he will, at least get a practice in this week, maybe play. Most likely probably won't. I'm guessing next week. Alex Wright was the name that 2 weeks ago, was bandied about, Jorge. I mean, this pass rush for Cleveland's been atrocious. Are you even considering anybody on this Cleveland defensive line?
No.
It's
always been. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. It's either been Myles Garrett or Clowney if they were facing a run-heavy offensive team, just because we know Clowney not great for pass rush, fantastic as a run stopper.
Mm-hmm.
Neither are there. I don't think Clowney plays at all this week. Well, no, I don't think Garrett plays at all this week.
Right.
And Clowney is trending in that negative direction. I don't want any part of this Cleveland pass rush if neither of those guys are here.
Yeah, and you touched on one thing which is true. Clowney has been historically so good in run stopping that the pass rush hasn't even necessarily been a thing that we had to worry about since 2018 when he had 9 sacks. It's this year, though.
He's been playing really well.
He's actually had 6 pressures over 2 weeks, and he got to the quarterback in both games. A lot has to do with the fact that, number one, he's a gifted athlete. There's no doubt about that. But you have Myles Garrett on the other end. Now I'm not sure if we have either one of those two. Indianapolis, DeForest Buckner did not practice today. Combination of injury as well as it's DeForest Buckner. He doesn't have to practice. Yannick Ngakoue did not practice. But the most important item of the day, if you ask me, and this is probably biased, but Shaq Leonard did practice in full. It looks like we're going to get our first week of Shaq Leonard. Hollywood, you are a Zaire Franklin manager right now, and you have an opportunity to pick up somebody else. Without the knowledge of Shaq Leonard playing or not, today you make a move. Are you dropping Zaire Franklin?
No, not until I know something concrete.
Okay.
Because we played this little game 3 weeks in a row now. If you see something last minute, of course you're starting Darius because I refuse to call him Shaq. But
I know.
If you see him playing, you're starting him last minute, right? So with that thought in mind, if you're a Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed even.
Yeah, he's been okay.
I think those guys are – I think you're keeping them for this week. I mean, you have to. The volume's there. Both of them has been playing well. I just don't know how you could kind of bench them at this point. You need concrete proof. Once you get this is Wednesday, right? So you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe even into Sunday morning, depending on how your waivers are set. But, yeah, I think you're keeping Franklin and even Speed. I think you're keeping both of those guys until you see something concrete that Leonard is starting or playing.
Speed, I am not as paramount keeping, only because I have a hard time looking past Zaire and seeing that through the 3 weeks, he's, tied for third in solos with 22. He has 30 total tackles on this season, 2 tackles for a loss. He's got the pass defense, not much more in the way of any turnovers, but the tackle volume that we all just would desperately, kill for, especially in a situation where you're looking at a guy who you just picked up off waivers, and we don't have to post every comment that comes through, Jorge. You don't need to post anything from Gator, go to hell. And yeah, I love it.
Love your patronage, though. Thank you.
We do. Yes, exactly. Gator, real quick question though for you, my friend. Are you in Florida? If you are, I hope that you're that you're safe and that any of your family members are safe as well. If you're not in Florida and you're far away from disaster or anything else, you can go to hell. And with
that's
that,
exactly what I was thinking. That's exactly the phrase I was thinking. Well done.
And
Oh,
in Minnesota, Harrison Smith got a full practice in today. Good news from Harrison Smith managers. I will say, Jorge, we talked on Sunday. You said, is Metellus worth something? Yeah, he is going to hell. Perfect. Worth an option with Harrison Smith out. And my response to that was what I had seen and heard and read is that it was going to be a split between Metellus and Lewis Cine. I was way wrong. It definitely appeared that, well, I wasn't necessarily wrong. I mean, my information that I deciphered was
Your
wrong.
process was.
I read what they said and beat writers as well as coaching staff from Minnesota, and they said they were going to split, and they didn't, and maybe there was reasons. I did not see the beginning of the game. For all I know, Lewis Cine very easily could have got a snap in, but I can tell you by looking at the actual game recap, that ain't the case because it was not even remotely close in terms of total snaps, if you look. And so never had a chance. I do apologize if anybody actually listening took me at my word. That was dumb on the first mistake you made. Just kidding. Going forward. Zadarius Smith did not practice so today. Any concern there, Hollywood?
With Zadarius?
Yeah, I mean, is he really banged up? You think this kind of combination?
Not this early in this week, unless it's a serious injury, which I'm sure we'll talk about some here in a few minutes. But
yeah,
unless it's a known serious injury on a Wednesday, I'm not concerned. When we start getting late Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that's kind of where you're getting concerned, right? So
yeah.
No, I think you kind of pump the brakes on that for now and kind of see what happens tomorrow or even Friday.
Gotcha. New England, Kyle Duggar got into limited practice. Good news going forward. We'd like to see him get some play. With the Giants, Leonard Williams did not practice today. Something to monitor, especially if you're in a defensive tackle league. Hollywood, I know that's a lot of leagues that you're in. Leonard Williams is a solid asset to have there, and losing him is a pretty big hit. In the opposite side of New York, fellow New York, Jerseyan, actually, if you will, Quincy Williams did not practice, most likely trending out. Jorge, is Quan Alexander someone that you're even going to look at for the deepest of leagues, or what do you is it CJ Mosley or bust in New York?
So I'm so intrigued with your answers right here because me and Kyle talked about this last night. I'm intrigued with what y'all think here.
So when Alexander was brought on in August, I think it was like late in the training camp, he was brought on there. The first thought was, well, is this going to impinge on Quincy Williams? Salah and the connection that he has with Quan Alexander in San Francisco. Is that what's going on? And what happened? Rotation, depth piece, veteran presence.
Mm-hmm.
To answer your question, no, I'm good. It's CJ. I don't. The days of me banking and hoping and praying that Quan Alexander is going to be my guy in my linebacker spot this weekend have long been gone. I don't. It's Mosley. And if I could just quickly jump back quickly to Zadarius Smith for the Vikings.
Yeah.
Normally for a sleeper on the sleeper app, you have dual designations. You can have him as a linebacker. You can have him as a defensive lineman. Traditionally, I would always put him as a defensive lineman because of the tackle upside. Mm-hmm. He's gotten to the point for me that I would rather have a true defensive lineman and forego any potential tackle upside he might have than start him as a defensive lineman. And in fact, I know this is like first world problems when it comes to fantasy football talk, but I dropped him for Craig Reynolds, and I inserted DeMarcus Lawrence as my defensive lineman. Which again, first world problems, right? But where I'm going with this is that even though he's a linebacker, even though there's a tackle upside, I'm good. I don't regret getting rid of Zadarius Smith, and I know that's maybe sacrilege to some.
Yeah.
But I'd rather I'd rather have Daniel Hunter if I was going to have any of the pass rushers than Zadarius, to be honest.
Yeah, that makes sense. Going back to Quan, Hollywood, was the conversation you and Kyle had about that, by the way. Oh, sorry, Jorge, go ahead. What's up, Kyle? Was it a positive conversation?
Mr. Big Time.
I look at 1 week only. 1 week only it's against Pittsburgh. And with the rush upside, or I guess the running volume, if you look back to like week 1, where Pittsburgh actually faced 2, I would say, decent linebackers, both Logan Wilson and I'm getting ready to say I threw Jermaine Pratt into a decent linebacker conversation. So I apologize to all Bengals fans, knowing that Jermaine Pratt is not a decent linebacker. He's just okay. But both of them had, they had 8 tackles and 9 tackles respectively. Is it possible that Quan could see 7, 8, 9 tackles this week? Hollywood, is that what the conversation was, or were you both just shitting on Quan Alexander? And Kyle is our favorite IDP.
Of course he is. Mr. Big Time is our favorite IDP Nation guy. Sean's just trolling me right now. We kind of pumped the brakes on Quan. I mean, of course, it's possible, right? But my question is, CJ, like Jorge said, CJ's the guy. CJ Mosley, he's the big dude. Right. If Williams is out, I kind of look at Jamin Sherwood, right? Is he someone that kind of fills in? Is Quan that somebody kind of fills in? I kind of think they take a rotational role there. See who's doing the best, see who's got the hot hand. I'm kind of not touching any of them, really, other than CJ Mosley, because I think he's that dude. Your question is it possible that Quan hits 7, 8, 9 tackles? If he's on a roll and gets the reps, then of course it is. I think he has that in him for a 1 week performance, but I don't know that I'm willing to take that gamble.
Yeah. So Gator has a question as far as, is Cam Jordan worth a start in London versus Minnesota? Obviously the first question probably would be worth a start over whom? And then secondarily, as you look at the matchup and you think, what do we expect from this Minnesota offensive line? We know from an efficiency standpoint, they haven't been great. They've allowed 37 pressures on the season. They've allowed only 3 sacks, though. So that's the question is, you two, what do you guys think? You think there's finally, that correlation, the pressures don't amount to the sacks? Is this the week that it actually, gets better? Because I don't know if they're going to stick with the run nearly as much. If we're worried about Dalvin with that shoulder, even though they said they're going to put the brace on, I don't know if I believe that or not. Does that mean they're going to have some more dropbacks? There's a lot to decipher with this potential matchup.
So, let's go with the latter. If I see this being a Madison game, to be honest with you, I don't see why they would want to. I think they want to preserve Dalvin Cook as long as possible. So I could see Madison getting a bulk of the carries this week. Going back to the Cameron Jordan versus the Minnesota Vikings offensive line question. If Marcus Davenport, was balling out like he did last season, I would be like, hell yeah, Cameron Jordan, 1-on-1 matchup, gonna be awesome, fantastic. That's not what's happening this season. I think the offensive line to the Vikings can definitely shift more protection towards Cameron Jordan's way, kind of negating that. And I don't think that they're really worried about Marcus Davenport, which, I can't say that I blame them.
No, it sucks. So I like Marcus Davenport. I think he's still not 100%. I think his lack of off season a little bit. I think with everything, he's still late to the party. I think he's still kind of ramping up. I'm hoping that is, if I'm trying to be optimistic. Looks like the other option that he has is the real Josh Allen versus Dallas, which Dallas, I'll give them
Jonathan Allen.
Yeah. Dallas doesn't play Jacksonville. Damn it. I had a good little thing. Oh yeah. I'm starting Cam Jordan over Jonathan Allen myself.
Really?
Yeah. I think Dallas has actually
I
done
don't know about that.
Dude, look what Terrence Steele has actually done in such limited time. I mean, being such a
Look
raw.
what Jonathan Allen's done to start the season.
Well, I don't doubt that. I don't think. Go ahead, please. I'll let you have the floor. That means you don't.
Yeah.
That's your cue.
We're on our game today, folks. I promise you. Let's pull up his stats right now.
I mean,
Let's go to
that's
Jonathan
a
Allen.
tough one to say that Jonathan.
So Jonathan Allen, he has 10
You got a
tackles.
divisional game.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean he's leading. He does not even lead. If anything, I think it's a Daron Payne matchup than it is a Jonathan Allen matchup. To be honest with you, I think he's the one who's been playing better.
I would give you that. Yes, I would give you that. But
well, he doesn't have him, so who cares what?
No, Jonathan Allen versus Dallas. Don't. I mean, let put it another way, Gator. Is this like a D tackle spot you're filling, or a defensive lineman overall spot? Because that answers that question really quickly. So if you could
that makes it.
So just let us know on the YouTube feed. What are you doing there? But no, I think of a lot of elite defensive tackles. Buckner, I think Christian Wilkins is an elite defensive tackle in the making. Josh Allen, very productive.
Jonathan Allen.
Jonathan Allen. Wow, I just pulled the Nate Markham. No, not feeling Jonathan Allen this week.
Sure. Well,
DL only.
See, I kind of am, but
of a DL only spot.
He averages basically 5 tackles a game against Dallas. They're missing some offensive linemen. They're got a backup quarterback. Now, granted, Cooper Rush has played pretty good, but and if you're playing now, I know he said defensive only, but if you're in leagues where you're playing defensive tackles, position specific, yeah, I'm starting Allen because you probably got a premium on tackles.
Yeah, and if I'm playing in a league that only starts if I'm playing in a league that only starts punters, I'm not starting either one of them. What the hell does that have to do with anything?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Who cares?
Okay, this is where we're at.
A lot of hypotheticals. The question is Cameron Jordan in a defensive line only versus
no, it's Jonathan
Allen.
No, it's not. It's 2 separate questions. Jonathan Allen versus Dallas, and then Cameron Jordan versus the Minnesota offensive line.
That's so if it's 2 separate questions, you're taking Cameron Jordan.
Damn it, we are off the rails.
You guys are
wrong.
No,
bullshit.
What he's saying is that is his other option is Jonathan Allen or Cameron Jordan.
I don't see I don't see the word or here.
Because but do you understand how the queue works when they ask questions? I asked the question saying, hey, what are your other options, Gator? And Gator responded by saying Jay Allen versus Dallas. That's how conversation.
All I know is that Kyle is fired right now. Kyle is fired.
Cameron Jordan versus Jonathan Allen. Cameron Jordan.
There we go. And moving on. Tennessee.
Yes.
Hollywood. Zach Cunningham did not practice.
Yes.
They brought in Joe Schobert. Does Joe Schobert actually play any snaps this week? And are they valuable snaps? Or are we worried at all about Zach Cunningham because they brought Joe Schobert in?
I think we're worried about Schobert. I think we're worried about Cunningham and Long, right? The fact that they're going outside to sign somebody. One, it shows you how weak depth-wise they are.
Mm-hmm.
I know Long and Cunningham kind of haven't been whatever, but yeah, I think there is some concern there. This week, I don't know how much, him just being recently added. I don't know what his play is this week. I would shy away from him this week, just on the side of caution. But if he has a good week this week, shows good. If that's the case, then I think going forward, you really have to consider him, right? Because Tennessee don't have anything outside of David Long and Zach Cunningham. And I mean, it's trash behind them, really, because Monte Rice is out and some of the other guys. They got Dylan Cole. I mean,
I'll read this in a
you know what? I can't
ASMR voice.
I can't respect anybody that's their tagline is Gator. I just can't do it. I'm not going to do it.
Much as it pains me to say this, Nate got the question.
Shots fired.
LOL. Yes. And that is exactly how being the number one downloaded podcast host for the Fantasy and Frames podcast network handles his wonderful, wonderful viewers. Gator, despite beating me last week, my team sucks in that league also. It's garbage. But congratulations. You are now in the top 20 fan rankings over at fantasypros.com, where I finished in the top 10. Jorge finished top 20. Hollywood was sniffing the rear. Speaking of that, guys, Chris Rump, worth a pickup with Joey Bosa. You like how I did that there? Dynamite. Thank you so much. Yeah, Joey Bosa. Unfortunately, it is it sucks. Really bad.
Did I read that correctly? That the plan is
he's
to
having
bring
surgery
him back though this season, even though he's having surgery.
The surgery is a recovery time that allows him to be able to return at some point this season. Yes, top 20. I know.
Gator, I don't know if you're being congratulatory or you're making fun of me. I don't know which one it is, but
I think it's congratulatory personally. But yeah, Chris Rump, are we looking into anything with that, or is it strictly just a body that's filling a role?
You know what I think, Nate? I think people should head over to fantasyandframes.com and read your IDP waiver wire article for week 4 and discover that for themselves.
I love the way you did that. Very good.
Thank you.
And as Sean said, you can tell Sean is top 20 fans as well, because he knows to go straight to the other guys' comments, which is fantastic. I wish I had a good other guy segue into this loss that hurts. Tracy Walker, just a favorite of so many. I really, really enjoy him as a player. And I did have shares of Walker this year. I drafted him in a few spots, and he's out for the season. It appears that Juju Hughes, who filled in last week, will be the first man up. But what do you guys think? Is Kirby Johnson, their draft pick this year out of the University of Illinois, worth a spot? His coverage ability is good. He's a playmaker. He's a ball hawk type player. He just isn't the best tackler. Not exactly maybe the best for a defense that could use some stability. I don't think they're looking for more splash plays. Hollywood, what do you know about Juju? Is he going to have an impact at all, or is it going to be just kind of a who can earn that role?
You know, I don't know a whole lot about him, but the role is there, right? The volume is there. Once, week 3, when the injuries happened, he really saw a huge uptick, right? He was the guy in. Played 63 snaps, 88%. He even played 13 snaps on special teams, which is 46%. 8 tackles, 5 solos. He's the hot waiver wire guy, right? You can find him. I don't care what league you're playing in, redraft, dynasty, whatever. He's out there. Because I went and looked, and he was every league that I'm in, he was out there. So if you're needing help at the position, just due to the sheer volume, I think he's worth a flyer for sure. I do like Kirby Joseph, but from everything that I'm seeing, Juju's the next man up. And what we saw last week, right, when the injury happened, he was the guy that come in. So I think if you're looking for safety help, he's the guy you want to attack.
Not to mention, yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say, not to, when I'm looking at the snaps here, you were seeing a tighter correlation between box versus free safety with Juju than you actually see with Tracy Walker. Tracy Walker, you were seeing him kind of leaning more the coverage side versus this season so far. Juju's been playing more box snaps to coverage. So tackle upside is certainly there. Would I start him this week? Probably not. But is it somebody that I would definitely like click the whole watch and keep track of where he is? Absolutely.
All right, you have to make a decision here. Would you rather start Juju Hughes as your defensive back 3 on your team, or Juju Smith-Schuster as your wide receiver 3 this week?
Juju Hughes.
Yeah, I think I'd go Juju Hughes, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Juju Hughes.
Just the sheer volume and lack of options. I think that's where you got to go, right, Jorge?
Yes, sir.
You guys have a Sean agrees with you. Sean, you're moving up. There we go. Congratulations, everybody. There will be prizes at the end for participation. I'll tell you who won't be participating in the game this weekend, unfortunately, will be Anthony Walker with the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, as we talked about earlier, a walking ICU. It looks like Jacob Phillips will be the hot item this week to add. We'll talk about Jacob Phillips in the Money or Mirage segment, but Jorge, I mean, is the hype for Phillips has been there for a couple of years, or had been there, I guess, past tense. Is the lack of options? I mean, a little sneak peek, Money and Mirage for yourself for Jacob Phillips.
Man, I mean, another sneak peek for Money and Mirage by default is an answer I'll be using. You look at his usage last week. I mean, this guy was flying all over the place. Tackles in the backfield, sacks, quarterback, pass defense. I mean, he was being asked to do everything. Versus a Pittsburgh team that was very one-dimensional in certain respects. Do you see that this week? I don't know. It's not like it's not like that's his MO, right? That makes me a little bit concerned about whether or not he is actually somebody that you can consistently count on. So I would say Mirage this week, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm leaning as well. Hollywood, welcome back. You obviously didn't want to have to get engaged in that conversation of Jacob Phillips with the Cleveland Browns, but let's jump ahead to our favorite segment. I would love to get confirmation of approval to play Ted DiBiase's theme song.
Go for it.
This. You want me to sing it? Is that what you're asking for?
I thought you had it like queued up on your phone or something.
Oh no, I don't. I don't want to violate.
Please sing it. I want to hear this.
My phone's dead, or else I would have.
No, I don't have anything clever like that. But it is our segment titled "Money or Mirage," where we took a look at this past week's most popular waiver wire ads, and we decide: is this player simply a mirage, or will he be money going forward? And last week, when we looked at this, we had a few that we, I'd say, were decently successful with. We took a look at J.J. Watt, and he was deemed a mirage, rightfully so. Travis Gibson, we thought was money. And here's the thing. We all knew going in that he was a snap count casualty, potentially. And that's exactly what happened. He was not money. Michael Walker was money. Leo Chanel, the jury was still out, is what it was said.
Right.
Now, that jury was not hung. That jury came out and said, guilty. Your penalty, staying on the sideline. Let Darius Harris come in and basically completely control that defense, which, by the way, I was not wrong, not right, because I didn't know what to expect out of Chanel. But I can tell you that I don't think anybody personally expected it to be Darius Harris's role that much. 62 of the 71 snaps being in his favor. I thought we'd see a little bit more Chanel than the 11 snaps he played. But it is what it is, and there's not much I can do in that regards. So I have to just, move along. And last but not least, we had Julian Love, who definitely proved to us that he was money. And we will look ahead to this week. And guys, sorry if you already showed. Did you show Kyle's thing?
Sing it, Nate. I saw it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Love it.
What
Love it.
is the price on Dietrich Weiss? I know it's Wise, but that didn't rhyme if I said it that way. Dietrich Weiss, defensive end for the New England Patriots, has been, dare I say, phenomenal this week, you two? Or this year, I guess. I don't know about this week. I'm not clairvoyant. But if you had your magic 8-ball and you were determining money or mirage, Jorge, which way you leaning?
So, digging up a few numbers here, talking about Dietrich Wise in passing situations. So, what do I mean by that? The quarterback's in the pocket, he's scrambling, he's bootlegging, he's doing all sorts of things. The quarterback is doing something involving throwing the ball. Dietrich Wise last week was the edge 17, meaning a defensive end or outside linebacker who's rushing the quarterback with a 19.8% win rate. Awesome, cool. In true passing situations, what do I mean by that? Quarterback just staying in the pocket, throwing the ball stationary, not moving around. He was the edge 10 with a 32.3% win rate. That is fantastic. Mm-hmm. So whether he's going against a guy who's stationary or he's going against a guy who can move around, he's been money. My concern is David Bakhtiari is back, and that's who he's going to be going against in Green Bay at left tackle because Wise is the right tackle and Judon is left. Not tackle, but end rusher. Mm-hmm. With Bakhtiari, he gave up a pressure last week, no sacks. He's one of the best left tackles in all of football. Wise maybe money other weeks. I don't think he's money this week, so I'm going to go Mirage this week.
Hollywood, what you thinking?
Mirage. Aberration this week was he dropped 17% snap count, which was 9 reps from week 2 to week 3, but the production was off the charts, right? 6 tackles, 5 solos, 4 TFLs, 3 QB hits, 3 sacks. That's a dream, right? If you're picking a player, especially him, that's the absolute ceiling, right? So if I'm a fantasy manager and I have him on my roster, I'm hugely pumping the brakes because I don't see that happening again at all this season. Even with some of the best matchups, even against Green Bay, even against Detroit, Cleveland, that's his next 3 games. But while I think maybe he has some good games in those 3, I don't think he's going to hit what he did this past week. So for me, it's a mirage. It's fool's gold.
Gotcha. And that's definitely a possibility. We've seen some highs, we've seen some lows. Week 1, 4 pressures, a sack, a hit, a couple hurries. The tackle volume wasn't there. Week 2, it was. He had 4 tackles, but only 1 pressure. And then week 3, we saw the blow up against Baltimore with the multi-sack game, which his 4 sacks on the season matched last year's totals and has exceeded the totals prior to 2018, where he had 5 sacks. So, yes, maybe at 28 years old, he's found himself. I mean, he's got the size, 6'5", 275. He's always been athletically gifted. It's just been a matter of situation, right. and I get it. And like Sean said, hard to play a Patriot defender outside of Matthew Judon, the way right to Jorge's heart. But it's not it's not fair. Kyle Duggar, I would say, is the only other one that I'm
shake it off, Jorge. Shake it off.
Look at that.
There's the Taylor Swift love I've been waiting for.
Very good.
Nicely done.
We'll use that little excitement and go straight into probably the number one, I would say, waiver wire addition from an IDP standpoint this week. Josie Jewell, Denver, recovering from that torn pec, came in. First game in, I tell you, looked money. But how is he for this week and going forward?
So I'm gonna throw some rates your way and some tackle rates your way. And before I get into that, I put out a tweet yesterday asking people in the IDP community who do statistical analysis, do you use Pro Football Reference or do you use Pro Football Focus when doing your stats and whatnot? And many of you have answered, and there's a poll going currently on Twitter. I can't recall who's winning what right now, but
I use Reference.
See, some use Focus. That's a good point. So here's my answer to that question. I guess it was rhetorical yesterday, but now I'm answering it. If a player has a 15.1% tackle rate, a la PFF, and a Pro Football Reference says they have a 17% tackle rate, what does that tell me? Does the number actually matter, or does it what it represents matter? What it represents is that he's effing good at tackling. Heading into week 3, the average tackle rate amongst linebackers was 11%. So 15 or 17, that's pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. Already, so the performance against the 49ers was fantastic. Great to see it. Is it sustainable? Well, the Denver Broncos on their depth chart already have him listed as the inside linebacker next to Jonas Griffith. So any hopes of Alex Singleton sneaking in there and taking away snaps, that's not happening. One, when you look at run defensive snaps last week, Jewell had 21 run D snaps versus Griffith's 14. So you know who's going to be the run defender here at the inside linebacking core for Denver. Because health, is always a thing. But healthy, I think Jewell has a clear path to tackle upside.
Hollywood. Pretty simple answer. Is it Josie Jewell's a money pickup and from here going forward?
I think so. Absolutely. If he's healthy, you're taking him. We didn't get to see him weeks 1 and 2 because of the injury and Jonas Griffith with us out. But week 3 against Denver, 95% snap share, 9 tackles, 5 solos, 2 TFLs, 2 quarterback hits, a fumble recovery, a sack. And he's a downhill guy, right? Early down thumper, especially against teams that run the ball, you definitely want to start him. But I just think their overall unit at linebacker, I think when healthy, he's the guy you want. And they like him. This goes back to a couple of years ago. That team loves him. They love how he plays, the effort, the energy. And that's some intangibles that you can't quantify, right?
Do better than that, Kyle. Better than that, Kyle. That's low hanging fruit right there. Come on, funny, but
yes, do better than that. Better. Oh, see how he provokes me. See, y'all get it. He can do so much better, but for me, it's a no-brainer. If he's healthy, you're picking him up or you're starting him, whatever you got to do. Jewell is LB2. I'll put it this way. LB2, absolutely smash. Starting, yes.
Okay. That's a pretty easy money pick for Josie Jewell. How about moving to the defensive back position and Donovan Wilson filling in? J-Ron Curse goes down with injury. Donovan Wilson, who last year had shown IDP relevance, this past week, came in, and if it was your first game you've ever watched of football, you would have left that game knowing one of two things. Cooper Rush is a decent quarterback somehow, and Donovan Wilson is the best defensive player not named Micah Parsons in the world, because he looked phenomenal to the naked eye. Jorge's about to tell us and play. I'm going to, piss on your leg and tell you it's raining because he's not really good at real football. Go ahead, Jorge. Tell us how bad he is at real football.
It doesn't matter how bad he is at real football. We're talking about fantasy football. That being said, look, on paper, this is exactly what you want out of a safety or defensive back. When the majority of your snaps are in the box versus playing in coverage, love it. 106 box snaps on the season to 16 coverage snaps, tackle rate 11.5%. Oh, okay, all right, whatever. Missed tackle rate 21.4%. Holy Jesus. Okay, that's not optimal at all. But that being the case, he is playing a majority of the time close to the line of scrimmage. And so the opportunity for tackle upside is there. So as I alluded to earlier, this whole by default comes into play. Yes, he is money by default, just like Nate Gary for the Eagles was money by default before coaches took him off the field because he couldn't play worth a damn in real football. I don't see that being the case here. No Jaron Curse, nobody to take a spot. So by default, he's money.
Quick question. Jalen Petrie, by default, really good?
Are we talking real football or fantasy football or both? Or?
What's your by default? I'm only asking because his near 31% missed tackle rate is the second worst in all of football. And yet I don't think I would say Petrie is great IDP-wise by default. I think that there are certain things that when you have these rockets from the defensive back that try to make the big plays and the big hits, I think they have a tendency to miss more tackles. I give them a little bit, but you're not wrong because there will be no question that when Jaron Curse comes back, that they're not tempted by Donovan Wilson's stellar secondary skills that they may eat into his snaps. And I think that's what you're alluding to. And that was well said and well pointed out is forget all the actual football talk sometimes and just take advantage of the fact that he's a missile and he's going to stuff the stat sheet and do a little bit of everything.
That's right.
See, that's how it works here. Jorge says really smart stuff. I dumb it down to be pretty much just willy-nilly. I'd say I know our audience, but that's an insult to our audience. Mostly that's just directed at you, Gator, Sean, and Kyle, because you know that we love you. Clamped Easy is
on YouTube. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much for joining. Has a great question.
Yes, sir.
Should he accept this trade? He is receiving Aaron Jones for Kareem Hunt and Gabe Davis. His current receivers are Jamar, Waddle, Pittman, and Mike Williams.
Yes.
No.
You say no. I say yes
No.
in a heartbeat.
He's getting Aaron Jones, Kareem Hunt, and Gabe Davis to add to Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Pittman and Mike Williams. Yeah.
So what makes you, Hollywood, say no? Do you feel that is Gabe Davis? Okay, here's a question for you, Hollywood. You have Chase, Waddle, Pittman, Williams. Are you starting Gabe Davis over two of those four week in and week out? Because I'm not.
Maybe in the right matchup I am. Maybe.
I don't know. Man, that's
I think
tough.
Kareem Hunt and Gabe Davis are they're number two, right behind Chubb, behind Diggs.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like both of those are getting disrespected, right? Aaron Jones with AJ Dillon, he's not getting disrespected, but his timeshare is getting eaten into a little bit. If I'm hurting at both positions, if I'm hurting at wide receiver and running back,
You're not. You
I'll
have
trade
Jamar
Jones
Chase.
for
You
Hunt
have Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman, Mike Williams. We know he's not hurting at receiver. We know what his
that's
receiver.
receiver. What's his running back look like? This is his receivers.
Yeah, Clamp.
That makes a difference.
What's your running back stable?
It does, except for this. Before getting Aaron Jones, we know Kareem Hunt was one of his starters. Now it's going to be Aaron Jones. That is an upgrade to me, no matter how you phrase, no matter who his number 1 or 2 is. That's then hey,
yeah, I can see that.
But I know what you're saying. It's hard. That's what's hard about some of these two spots is.
But you really got to be on Aaron Jones, right?
I am on Aaron Jones though. That's probably the thing too.
So AJ Dillon's not scaring you whatsoever.
He scares me in the fact that I think that Aaron Jones without AJ Dillon could probably be a top 3 fantasy back overall, and instead he's borderline 8, 9 maybe. He's still low end RB1, and he's got Joe Mixon, Tony Pollard, and Michael Carter. So he'll have Mixon, Aaron Jones. I mean, I say yes. Jorge says yes. Hollywood, you're still on the fence about that. But
no, with his running back selection, I would go yes too. But I mean, there is a debate there.
Clearly, I mean, enough that he had to
year.
question it.
No, I don't know that AJ. I wouldn't say that AJ don't scare this year. I wouldn't say
as long as there's no receivers. If a couple of the receivers had stepped up and made this pass offense formidable, I would be a little more concerned. But I think they're going to be able to utilize both backs more times than not because they want the best weapons on the field at any time. Yes, let's go to the best options on the field. Hollywood, give me a play this week at defensive line when you want to say you want to get the best player on the field. Who's somebody outside of the top 12 at the position that you would feel comfortable throwing into your lineup?
So we're talking defensive line here. It's Shy Tuttle for me, right? Week 1, 2 tackles, 2 solos, nothing special. 55% of the snaps, but man, the last 2 weeks he's been a wrecking ball. Week 2, 61%, 9 tackles, a quarterback hit, a pass deflection. Then last week, 74% of the snaps, 7 tackles, 5 solos. So you're clearly seeing with his production, right? You're clearly seeing an uptick. They're giving him more reps because he's doing better. Now, he is a defensive tackle. He does kick out a little bit and play some defensive end, but with the trend that so far this year, if he can produce, they're going to give him the plays. You got Cameron Jordan, you've got Demario Davis, you got those guys around you, especially if you're in a defensive tackle league. Oh, you're smashing picking up Shy Tuttle right now.
Yeah, he's been nothing short of fantastic. Yeah. Really good. That interior with him and David Onyemata is a very sneaky interior line that I really like. Jorge, who's a play for you at linebacker this week?
So I may be out of the circles, so to speak, in the Twitterverse or the IDP fantasy community when it comes to this player, although I did see his name come up once and it elicited a lot of Sean, I'm not going to post a comment you just made right there, but you and I are on the same page.
I was getting ready to say the same thing.
But it's Ernest Jones. Look, I understand that there's a concern with the whole snaps with Bobby Wagner. Yes, Wagner has 201 snaps on the season versus Jones is 134. But Jones has more tackles, total tackles. He has a tackle rate of 15.7%. You're looking at Fantasy Pros IDP scoring 13, 15, 7.5. Now he's going against a run-heavy 49ers team. I don't think this defense for the Rams is going to be all about playing coverage, where they just have all these defensive backs and just one linebacker. I think you're going to see both these guys on the field fairly comparably. Even though there's a disparity on the season in snaps, I don't care. I think the matchup is perfect for Ernest Jones this week. I love it.
I do. I think that if the snaps, it could actually just be on the uptick, we could see something really special. Something's got to, go right for the Rams this year, because it sure as hell is not on the offensive side of the ball. Might as well be defense, because hey, who doesn't love defense? Speaking of defense, that's a worse segue. God, Hollywood, fire me. I'm done. I'm just going to go ahead and log off now. Kyle, will you step in?
You and Kyle both are fired.
Okay.
No, Kyle's fired too. This is his fault.
Kyle Kyle came and supported you tonight because he's like, this pathetic soul's going to be wearing a shit Cubs hat. I got to come in and give him some faith, give him some support.
Wow.
Oh, shit. Here we go.
Here we go,
Wow.
indeed.
You see over my back? Look at that. Hey, Hollywood. Look up here.
We go.
You see this over there? Those are trophies. Those are called, that's a World Series trophy.
This is also, folks, why we're on at 10 p.m., not your prime time.
Yeah. Wine Wednesday to start yelling at each other. You know who doesn't make me whine?
What's that?
Julian Love. Julian Love is, for me, that just kind of perfect aligned safety that you really want to have in your lineup. And then you throw in the matchup of the week, the Chicago Bears, maybe the single highest on pace rushing team in the league. I mean, they are incredibly run heavy. You don't need to post Gator J's thing.
I got you.
Yes, I know.
I'm waiting for later in the show. I got it.
He asked earlier. It's okay. I get it. Can't be in first in every league. It's all right. But I can't. I can try at least. Still long season. Long story short, the Chicago Bears have given up 2 of the single highest scoring weeks to safeties that play at those weeks over 50% of the snaps at the line of scrimmage in Jalen Petrie and Talanoa Hufanga. And I think Julian Love is in that same situation. Hollywood, Xavier McKinney has not been. We're waiting.
I love him. I love him this past week. He was my favorite player.
I know. I lost. Me and Hollywood. Or
you know what?
We tied.
We've talked. Yeah, but we've talked about this, and I don't think anybody anywhere was any higher than me on Xavier McKinney, right, for the season.
I think he was in your top 10 or top 12 during the preseason rankings. I think.
Yeah. He's kind of shit the bed, right? But Julian Love.
Yeah,
I've loved Julian Love, no pun intended, since his days at Notre Dame. He played corner. They moved him to safety, and they're like, oh, whoa. And I think it was against one of the Army or Navy, one of the military teams. He had like a 14 tackle game, and it's like, wow. He busted out. So I like him even in the pros. He's got that flexibility, corner safety, but
or do you love him? Because you said you've loved him.
Go away.
You one up me by saying you loved him from his days at Notre Dame. I'm going to say I've loved him from his days at Nazareth Academy in LaGrange Park, Illinois, where as a senior in 2015, he was Football Player of the Year, 92 tackles, 1,067 yards rushing, 18 touchdowns on offense. Yeah, it looks like I am the biggest Julian Love fan, unless Jorge has high school.
Touche.
I'm going to be the honest one here and say I've loved Julian Love since in August when we did our NFC East preview talking about defensive backs. And Julian Love came out as one of the ones to pay attention to.
Very good. Very, very true. Let's talk about some guys that we're off of this week, some fades. And real quick through, since we need to do our sack lunch to finish up. But I'll start a defensive back and go backwards. I got to tell you, I'm worried a little bit this week, and I'm down on Minkah Fitzpatrick. Not that I think that he's not going to finish as a DB2 on the week, but look at the last.
Is he in the protocol?
Yeah, so that's another reason. That was after the fact that I saw that. I was like, oh, that just adds, another icing on the cake is that, the tackle volume virtually non-existent really over the past couple weeks now. And the splash plays that you see out of Minkah, I don't know if we'll see with this Jets offense. And that's weird to say because, you would think that Zach Wilson potentially has the tendency to turn the ball over. I just wonder if they're going to they're not sure as hell not going to throw the ball 51 times if it's Zach Wilson is playing. It's not this Joe Flacco led offense.
Exactly.
And I think it's going to be a little more conservative. And I'm just, tempering expectations. Now, that being said, Minkah's going to come out. and he's going to get 13 tackles and have an interception and touchdown. And I'll look none the wiser. I almost went Trayvon Diggs because what we saw Monday night, he was so shitty. And then he gets an interception at the very end. Sean's fading Jonathan Abram against Denver. What are you laughing so much for?
I'm sorry.
Our private chat.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
our freaking private. Oh, I so fucking hate you. You're such an asshole.
Oh, gotcha.
As you were. Continue on, Nate. Continue on.
I'm actually good. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the. Do either one of you guys have a fade this week that you want to talk on? Jorge, who's yours?
So I'm going to go with Jamin Davis. He had a big week last week versus the Eagles. I think that was an aberration. Why? Because he sucks in coverage, and you have Dallas, who they are passing it to Zeke. They are passing it to Tony Pollard. I just think his coverage ability is not going to help him. His lack of coverage ability is not going to help him one bit. So I think you saw, like I said, an aberration from Jamin Davis, and I would fade him this week.
Nice. Hollywood, you got a fade at defensive line.
Yes, sir.
Who's you fading?
I do, and I'm kind of expecting a little heat on this, and that's okay. We talked about this a little bit, me and Kyle on IDP Nation, but I'm kind of fading DeForest Buckner right now. He's getting the play, right? And 3 weeks in, 3 weeks in a row, 4 tackles, 2 solos. But the sack numbers have not been there. The tackles for a loss has not been there. Quarterback hits has not been there for the first 2 weeks. Week 3, a little better against Kansas City, but at Houston, 4 tackles, 2 solos. At Jacksonville, 4 tackles, 2 solos. Then at home against Kansas City, 4 tackles, 2 solos again. But he did get the 2 quarterback hits. So, if you're playing in defensive tackle leagues where you're starting defensive tackles, you're expecting more out of him right now. You probably got a lot invested in him. So, you know what? I'm kind of fading him until I don't know what the deal is. I need to go back and watch the tape. But until I can see more out of him, I'm kind of fading him right now.
Okay. Gotta wonder if a little bit of, I think it was a hip injury that's been getting him. It's hard to fade DeForest Buckner from what you've seen. We love him, but it's fair. Lingering issues like that can have an effect. Guys, last segment of the episode is one of my favorites. Last week, well, let's back up, Nate. Let's tell people what the segment's called. It is called Sack Lunch, where we choose one person. Between the 3 now, hopefully 4 of us when Mike returns with this. Been living the high life, Spain, taking it easy at home. Man, making us do all the grunt work. But we pick a defensive player that's going to guarantee a sack. And then at the end of the year, we'll see who has the most, Lunchables in their bag at the end of the thing. Let's start Hollywood. Who do you want to choose as your sack lunch?
That's a tough one. With some of the offensive line issues that's going around the league, right? Yeah. That's kind of tough. I would have to say, yeah.
So last week your pick was Max Crosby against Tennessee. And as you predicted, he definitely ate that sack lunch. So you're the only one that got the victory. Jorge had Charles Harris against the Vikings. I had Sam Hubbard against the Jets. Should have went with Trey Hendrickson. Did not. But Hollywood, go right ahead.
I even took that bet. I even doubled down on that last week and took that bet that Max Crosby would get the over-under was a half a sack against Tennessee. So I
you
took
put your
that
money
bet,
where your mouth.
I did. I mean, with Taylor Lewan out, some of the other issues that they've had, it was a no-brainer, right? I kind of go. We're gonna go continue to go the well until Taylor Lewan's back, until they can fix some of those issues on that offensive line. I think you got to look at Indianapolis, right? So this week, I'm going to take Kwity Paye. I know I just downplayed DeVorce Buckner, but I think until Tennessee can solidify some things, get Taylor Lewan back, even with Taylor Lewan there, they had issues, right? Mm-hmm. So, for me, I think I'm going to take Kwity Paye. I think
nice. Take the easy road, the low hanging fruit. I don't blame you one bit. Let me go ahead and put you in here at Kwity Paye because
wow.
So now, Jorge, that leads to you. You have last week's play did not come to fruition.
He got 2 quarterback hits. He got there. He just didn't finish the job.
Okay, great, neat. How does that?
Close only counts in hand grenades and horseshoes, right?
Correct.
Just saying. Just saying.
What you got this week, buddy?
So, Sean, buddy, you and I are on the same page with Dorrance Armstrong here at Dallas Cowboys. Look, Micah Parsons, awesome. DeMarcus Lawrence, awesome. But this past week, injured. He got injured towards the end of last week's game. Even Dorrance Armstrong got in on the sack party versus Daniel Jones. Going against the poorest offensive line of the Washington Commanders, who gave up 9 sacks to Philadelphia. In true passing situations, that means a stationary quarterback who doesn't scramble that well, a la Carson Wentz. He has a 15.4% win percentage. I just see he's going to join the party. He's not going to do anything special, IDP-wise. Mm-hmm. He'll get you that sack, though.
He should have had 2 last week. One got called back on a penalty, and he had a great – it was I'm trying to think who it was he beat. It doesn't matter. But great move to the inside. Got the sack, flag on the play. Should have been 2 for Dorrance Armstrong. I'm right there with you guys. Would have been a great play. Looks like we're going to have a good game to watch if we're trying to really finalize this last pick, because mine – is Micah Parsons. The same, obviously the same reason. Which team has allowed the most sacks? Washington. Who leads the NFL in pressures? Micah Parsons. That, recipe for success sounds pretty simple. Boil water, throw in ingredient, turn off water when it's done. Rinse, repeat, eat. And that's what Micah Parsons is going to do. Eat Carson Wentz's lunch. And that's what we have. Before we go, one last question. Kevin Tolliver wants to know, he got offered Travis Etienne from Michael Carter in a full point PPR. My thoughts are I'm taking Travis Etienne all day. But I understand that the concern with James Robinson usage. I just think that Etienne's too talented, more so than Michael Carter. Jorge, I know you're a Michael Carter fan.
But that's close right? Really? Etienne for Carter, that's pretty close, right?
If we're talking about like raw talent, sure, you could make that argument. For me, in this situation, which team is rising in offensive prowess? Which one is falling or just stationary and stagnant? Give me Etienne and the Jaguars. They'll get him going eventually.
That's my guess. We'll finish here with one more little question from our friend Gator. Any players you guys are watching tomorrow? Tomorrow, by the way, is potentially the release of the best jerseys that I've seen on the season in the Cincinnati Bengals against the Miami Dolphins. I'll tell you some scenarios I want to watch. I want to see Brandon Jones's usage. I think we saw in week 2 where his snaps were cut into. Didn't play 100% this past week. Still saw enough snaps that he was more than valuable and relevant. Obviously, we saw what Brandon Jones can bring to the table when he plays is a stat-stuffing monster. The one area I'm also kind of interested in is seeing what the Cincinnati linebacking core. If I'm not what was the injury to Jermaine Pratt? Was it anything bad?
Suckage.
Okay, suckage I don't think is an injury.
It's like a condition. I don't recall off the top of my head.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Real suckage? I don't know.
Yeah, you guys are fucking mean. You guys hating on the Bengals. But Jermaine Pratt is questionable. He was doubtful after yesterday. So, I mean, what I'm getting at is limited linebackers there. I think that could be something, especially against this team, this Miami team, which if Tua doesn't play, what type of offense do we expect to see? I just
a Thursday night snoozer.
Really? You think that'll be that way? You don't think Cincinnati can drum up enough offense? I know you're down on Cincinnati as a whole.
Well, Sean here just brings up a guy who I think is just a game wrecker for the Dolphins and Christian Wilkins. I think I mentioned recently to end last season he had a win rate versus offensive lineman that was right there with Aaron Donald, and I think I wrote a piece on him earlier in the offseason. I think he's one of the next great defensive tackles in the league. This offensive line for the Jaguars, for whatever reason, the Bengals suck. Plain and simple. So I think it's going to be a snoozer. I think the Bengals are going to try and be a little bit too cute and try and get Joe Mixon going, and he's just going to run into Christian Wilkins. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a snooze fest. Maybe you'll get one or two big plays from Higgins or Chase, but yeah, I mean it's an IDP dream, right? Maybe Jerome Baker gets something going this week, but yeah, that's where I stand with that.
Well, I was leave on this little statistic considering and talking about the Miami Dolphins last week. Miami and Buffalo, Hollywood. Check this out. The Miami Dolphins generated more pressures than the Buffalo Bills played defensive snaps. How crazy is that?
Wow.
If we see a replication of that same, isn't that fascinating? 46 pressures generated and only 43 defensive snaps by the Bills. So if that's the case, that's the type of Miami pass rush that we can expect to potentially see against the Bengals offensive line that has been
atrocious, right?
They have not been the Bengals offensive line that we as football fans had expected them to produce with the money they spent.
I mean, if they don't fix their pass protection, they're going to get Joe Burrow killed. So, yeah,
absolutely.
Manny Agba, 7 pressures. Melvin Ingram III, which Reclamation Project, talk about fountain of youth. He had 6 pressures and a couple sacks, right?
Comeback player of the year candidate, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's 3. It might be a little stretch, but
I
know what you're saying.
I think he's
absolutely
right.
Jalen Phillips. It should be. I hope it's a great game. I hope that everybody watching has had as much fun as we've had by doing this.
Where's it at? Miami or Cincinnati? Where's that game at?
Minnesota. It's in Minnesota. It is in Minnesota. It's supposed to be in Miami, but there's a hurricane, so they had to relocate it, and they're going to play it in Minnesota.
Where are the Chiefs and the Bucks playing this week? Is it also?
I don't think I've seen that yet.
Nope. Scratch that. I'm stupid. Completely wrong. It's Tampa and Chiefs that are playing in Minnesota. All right. If you listen this long, you pretty much just hang up now. So on behalf of Jorge, Hollywood, and Nate, thank you so much. We will see you next week.